Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Less Stress, More Peace and Happiness Summit. My name is Janine Wooten, and I'm your host for the summit. I'm so happy that you've decided to invest some time and join us because you're learning so many great things with so many great speakers. And today, of course, is no different. I have someone special to introduce to you today. I am going to tell you a little bit about Gabi Kivi, and then we'll bring her on. Gabi is the owner of Holy Live, a wellness center that helps children and their families to regulate their nervous systems, train their brains, and maximize their potential. She has a degree in psychology. She's a certified brain trainer, a safe and sound practitioner, a Reiki master and teacher, and she's studied various modalities of energy healing and other natural ways of healing. Today, Gabi is going to share her expertise specifically around the area of parenting and how to create an environment in your home that's less stressful and more peaceful. And we all know how important that is. So, hi, Gabi, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, and thank you so much for having me here today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate it. This is such an important topic because just having a peaceful home is foundational to having peace in your life, period. And children can definitely be a source of stress. So yeah, I'm just really excited to dive in and hear your talk and learn a little bit more about you and what you do. I'd like for you, if you don't mind, to start with, I'm going to give you the foreground. We're going to put your title. There we go. I'm going to take the backstage and let you have the stage. But if you don't mind, if you could just tell us, I love to start with personal stories. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into doing this work that you're doing.
Sure. It's a great question, actually. So really came out through a need for healing for myself, natural healing for myself and my family. I would say about when my son was about 3 years old, things just suddenly went into craziness. There was chaos in the home. He became really aggressive, angry, irritable, in just chronic states of stress and irritability. It came out in physical and verbal aggression towards me, his sister. And, that created disharmony in myself. I was totally stressed out. And I was it led me to seeking, I guess, healing on all levels for myself and really for my son and my whole family. It was really about whole family healing. And so from that, he's been my greatest teacher, and I've learned so many amazing things that I just feel are so important to share now. And that's why really my business was created, because I see the need and different people have different levels of it, but there's a lot of stress in the world right now with everything going on that's been going on in the world. And I want to be able to share some of the tools that I have learned through my journey to be able to share them with others.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that you said he became your teacher. Isn't that true?
Very much so. Very much so. Children are some of our greatest teachers, without a doubt.
Right. And a lot of in fact, I would say almost all of the speakers, start in a place of personal need themselves, and they go on this journey of learning. So, I just really have to honor that, because somebody might not, it takes work, it takes determination. And then even when you learn something, you still have to do the work.
Exactly. Practice.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I love that. And then you're taking what you've learned and using it to help others. So I just think that's great. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, and again, parenting, I'm actually, our kids are grown and we have grandchildren now, but everyone almost can relate to parenting and just the amount of yourself that you have to bring to it all day, every day. And when there is, like you said, disharmony or stress in the household, it makes it really difficult sometimes. And you do put it on yourself, like, what am I doing wrong? Do you mind if I ask, you mentioned a daughter too. So the daughter was easier, was she older then and she didn't demonstrate some of the same behaviors? So this was kind of like, what is going on?
Exactly. So she's a couple of years younger, and So she was an easy baby. My son, I would say, was challenging from the start, right? And again, now today, I know how much stress in the mother while pregnant can even affect the development, social, emotional development of children, even prior to pregnancy and conception. Your stress levels and everything like that can affect your children's social, emotional, brain development down the track. It's quite amazing. But
it really
so
is.
yes, so she was definitely an easier child. I didn't have as a stress pregnancy, but you know, so even when he was acting out, she was the easier one. She just had a different stress response. So he was going into the fight stress response. She was more of that flight, which I had that tendency towards more so, to kind of be anxious, but like quiet and withdraw and move away from things. So
Retreat
stress responses in children, just like in adults, it shows up differently. So, but yeah, I mean, they've come a long, long way. We had a lot of chronic illness and things like that. Which one came first? I'm not sure, whether it was the dysregulation that then created immune, response decreased and created illness. Was it the illness that then therefore contributed to this dysregulation? I think both go hand in hand, a lot of the time.
I think you're right. And it's interesting too that you have the two children in the same household with the same parents in the same environment, the same amount of love and nurture, and still they have very different temperaments and different stress responses.
Yep.
So
different experience. You're right. Yeah.
Right. So, and same mom. So I assume similar pregnancies. So I was wondering if you could tell, as you mentioned, the fight or flight, would you like to go a little bit more into that? I know you provided us with a beautiful graphic. So first I want to,
it is, yes. So let's talk about the stress response in children, but also the stress response in adults. So what's beautiful is neuroscience today really shows us, it's a physiological response. It's not just, so this is polyvagal theory and our autonomic nervous system. This is very important. I really want people to understand this. So we really have three key physiological states. We have the social engagement state in the green. This is where we feel joy, present, grounded. We're curious, compassionate, mindful. And it actually comes with a whole bunch of physiological responses. So oxytocin is increased. We're able to relate better to people. Children are able to think well, play well, connect, learn, all of these types of things in this state, so this is where we want our children for the most part. This is where we want to be for the most part. Then we sometimes can go into the fight-flight response, which is in the red, the sympathetic response. Now this is, we have a need for this, right? So evolutionary, when there was a tiger or like an enemy to fight, we needed, our bodies physiologically needed adrenaline. We have oxygen pumped to our organs and muscles, hormones. It affects, your breathing, your heart rate, all these physiological responses. And with that, you have these states of mind. So it also impacts your thoughts and feelings. So you'll feel in that fight state, right? More rage and anger, irritation, frustration. Flight, you feel more anxiety and kind of worry and concern and overwhelmment. And then when we are unable to eliminate or remove that threat, whatever that is, right, we then naturally go into the freeze state. And the freeze state is really where we lose, we feel disassociated. We kind of switch off and we feel shut down. So again, evolutionary, we think of maybe, let's say, we're unable to run from a tiger or something that's coming. So therefore, our body kind of shuts down in order to conserve energy, and it even endorphins are released so that we are numbed, so we don't feel as much. So it's really quite interesting. And we go through all three of these states all the time throughout our lives, but even throughout the day. So let's say you and I are talking right now. I'm in the social engagement state, but I'm also in the sympathetic state. My arousal level needs to be a little bit higher so I can do what I need to do. I'm a little bit excited maybe, and we do go through these three states, just like children do. Now, what the important thing is for us with our children is we don't want them too intensely in the fight-flight-freeze state, nor do we want them to be there too long. because that has an impact on a whole bunch of physiological things. And we can sometimes get stuck in one of these states, one of these defensive states. So we're either in a defensive state or we're in a growth stage, which is the social engagement state. So sometimes we can get stuck in one of these fight, flight, or freeze state. And what I really wanted to kind of impart today is what that really looks like for children. So this is really just generally here, but I wanted to share some of the behaviors that we may see in children specifically, because I was able to see it with my own children. And I wanted to, it might help mothers or fathers to just go, oh, maybe this is a stress response.
Absolutely, so, I'm sure.
So let's look at the fight state, first of all, that red sympathetic state. You might see yelling, screaming, using unkind, mean words, so that verbal aggression. And then we go into physical aggression too, hitting, kicking, biting, throwing, punching, blaming, deflecting responsibility, being demanding or controlling. There's a need to control often when we're in this fearful state. Being oppositional, defiant, non-compliant, moving towards what feels threatening, and just being moody, irritable, angry, furious, kind of in general, aggressive, offended easily. So when you think about that, right, they're behaviors that we don't really like to see in our children, and we may kind of shut them down. But so the key here with these states, what I really want, again, to share is, rather than saying, how do we get rid of these behaviors, we need to start asking why.
Right.
What is this telling me about my child?
Yes. Why are they presenting that behavior?
Exactly. So we think about the iceberg, right? The behavior is a form of a communication that we can use. It's a form of communication. It's the tip of the iceberg. Underneath that, we have all the whys. What's going on? What is it in children that's causing this stress response? These are stress responses.
Right.
So let's move to the next one, the flight, which was more like my daughter. So she was kind of wanting to run away and escape, being unfocused, hard to pay attention, fidgeting, being restless, preoccupied, procrastinating, avoiding the situation, moving away from things, and then feeling anxious, panicked, scared, worried, and overwhelmed. So you can see how that's quite different. Again, the physiological responses in our bodies are there, but it's showing up differently. And then we go into the freeze state, so the dorsal vagal state. This is all in our bodies. And in children, it might look like shutting down, their minds going blank, saying a lot of, I don't know, urging to hide themselves or isolating themselves, being verbally unresponsive, being zoned out and daydreaming. We kind of see that a lot in our children, right? Feeling unable to move and just feeling stuck and overwhelmed, and potentially even leading to depression, feeling numb and apathetic.
Wow.
So
it's really interesting. And I'm thinking of children that that might be in this state. They don't have the awareness or the verbal skills to explain, and so they really don't have a choice except to act on what they feel.
Exactly. Right? And so what's so important is these stress states are unconscious automatic survival responses. So as babies, we are born with our survival instincts. They're just there straight away. However, these executive functions, the ability to plan, the ability to think, analytically, to control our behavior, the impulse control and emotions come over time. It's not something that we have automatically. So the cerebral cortex, which is involved with this kind of the brain development, the social emotional ability to self-regulate, doesn't even starts to develop around 3.5 to 4 years old. So up until that point, we're really dominated by this automatic stress response, That's why we see the behavior with children. Now, what's important is that sometimes, for whatever reason, children are developmentally delayed. It's not the chronological age that really matters. It's their developmental age. So my son, going through what he was a little bit emotionally behind. And so, so we really need to consider their developmental age as opposed to what their actual age is. Where are they right now in their social emotional development?
Yeah,
And with that as well, the cerebral cortex, that ability to self-regulate, emotionally regulate, it develops over many, many years still after that, straight like through adolescence and stuff, you know. So it takes a while to develop.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I love the graphic. I'm really glad that you provided that. We've had a few speakers mention the
Autonomic nervous system. Yep.
autonomic nervous system and the vagus nerve, and so
Yep.
I
Yep.
love the graphic because I'm very visual.
Yep. Exactly.
And then,
yeah, it helps.
Right, and then you tying it into actual behaviors that we see in kids. This is it's really, really interesting. And I think it's really helpful too for parents who are in a situation where they're seeing some of these behaviors in their kids. I think it will help to know this information just so they can take a pause and realize that it's not something you have to like go control, make the child stop acting that way. Like you said, like just realize it's basically in our DNA, these behaviors, to choose a stress response and then just deal with it on that level. Like, why is it showing up like that? So I think that's beautiful. I love your talk, and I love what you do. So what would you say then someone should do if they do have a child or a situation, not necessarily a situation that's really problematic? How would you suggest that they deal with that? So do you want me to leave the graphic up a little bit, or?
It's up to you. That's completely fine either way. Whatever helps. But yeah, so with misbehavior, right? That misbehavior, the problematic behavior that we often see now, neuroscience, as I mentioned, shows us that often we think it's intentional behavior, but really it's their stress response. So they have no control of it. So when we do that, the primary need for the child is to go back to the feeling of safety and security. Something within themselves, be it internal or external, is triggering that sense of lack of safety. Something is worrying them or triggering. So our autonomic nervous system literally subconsciously scans in every single moment, our environment, people, situations, in every single moment. This is all done subconsciously, so we're not conscious of it. So what that means is perhaps an old memory. Let's say, you know, your father once got angry way back, you know, maybe raised his hand or hit you. And so you go into a restaurant and all of a sudden a facial expression or a gesture that he did reminds you of that. And our brain's primary job is to protect us. And it automatically then puts you into that state to protect you, to run, fight, you know, whatever it is. And you may not even be aware that that's what's triggering. And all of a sudden, all these aligned emotions and feelings, these negative, these fearful thoughts or whatever, all of a sudden kind of come up. So it's interesting how that happens. But back to the point, back to your question, is really getting the child back to a sense of safety and security is key, so that they can move back into that social engagement state, so they can think well and connect well with you. Otherwise, you know, so what we typically have been taught to do is to dish out discipline straight away. Or, you know, all of those things, right? It's like we've been trained for so long and conditioned to discipline, to punish, to condemn, all of these things, right? And what are we doing to our children? We're literally just putting them back even more into that stress state, the fearful state. So they're moving further back into it. What we need to do, and the best thing, the best tool that we have to get them out of these states is through co-regulation. And co-regulation is our nervous system's ability to connect and influence another person's nervous system. So we are wired to connect, and our nervous systems are in every moment, whoever we're with, we're connecting with their nervous systems, and their nervous system influences us. Our nervous system influences theirs. So that's why when our children are in states as well, when you think about it, they may be co-regulating us even. So we may start feeling a bit anxious and kind of fearful ourselves, right? We don't like it. We suddenly feel agitated as well. You think about that, like they're also co-regulating us. But the greatest tool that we can have is to genuinely get into that calm physiological state. And it needs to be genuine, not just pretending I'm fine,
Yeah.
I'm fine, but it's a genuine calm state. And then
Yes.
eventually, if we can give them space, they will join us and they'll use our nervous system to kind of be able to co-regulate into that state.
That's really interesting, and I can totally see it. Is that the same as I've heard people say entrainment? Is that basically kind of the same idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, entrainment is very similar. Yes, exactly. We're literally picking up, and that's why one of my tools is more like entrainment. You're entraining your brain to a certain frequency and things like that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So
I
it's
had another
amazing how connected we really are.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that like information like this is just empowering parents, to do a better job and to be more aware and more present and model better behaviors instead of getting stuck in that cycle of stress and anger and punishment and timeout. And I can see where it just keeps getting worse and worse. My other thought was watching your graphic here is it's easy to see with this why children are having a hard time focusing in school if they're not in a calm state.
Exactly. That's right. So I think schools and everything, and that's part of my goal. I hope to kind of help schools realize these things so that they can have a more regulated classroom. And it is becoming more and more being done so and shared with schools, like regulated classrooms to have that, because it's not.
I love that.
Yeah. And sometimes children react. It's interesting that they are one way, let's say at home, and another way in the school, right? What is it that's potentially setting off those things? And that's part of our challenge to also understand what is it underneath that's going on? What is it setting off these responses?
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you about triggers. If you're a parent that's in this situation, do you just make a conscious effort to pay attention to what might have triggered it? It could be a situation. I also think, this is just me, and you can weigh in and correct me, but I believe that a lot of environmental toxins are mental triggers for children these days.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. I totally
Hormones,
agree with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
The brain is kind of scrambled. It's not at peace.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. So it affects our nervous system, and there is a lot of toxins out there, whether it's in food or the air we breathe, the stuff that we put on our skin. There is, and it definitely has an impact. So all of those little things that we can do to lessen that stress load on children will help, right? And it's often, I feel, a combination of factors, and it's very individual. So you can never say, like, and you can go to, let's say, I think sensory needs are another one. A lot of children these days have different sensory needs, and you think about it. If someone's an overactive sensory need, then they're receiving so much information, so much visually, or receiving all these different sounds, and it becomes hard to kind of focus and things like that. It can be overwhelming to your system.
Yes,
so
for sure.
There are a lot of different factors that can come into it. So yes, observing and noticing when is the child responding to these, what are the kind of things in it. But sometimes it's internal too, and you may need to question, for my son, let's say, is negative thinking, right? Is he having pessimistic thoughts about himself, as self-esteem? You really kind of have to just start observing. That's all you can do, noticing without judgment. And sometimes you can drive yourself a little bit crazy, to be honest, to go into what is it this and this and this. I would say that the best thing that we can do as parents is to start regulating ourselves again, because, to your point, triggers, right? So we as adults have a lot of triggers. We've all had our experience. We've all had some level of trauma. I'm not saying major trauma, but some sort of level of traumas, and we've got a memory of everything that's ever happened to us through our senses and the sensory kind of input at that time. So noticing our own triggers is one of the best things we can do. So and then bringing yourself, kind of giving yourself the self-care and love to get back into that genuinely calm state again. But yeah, kindness and compassion for ourselves as parents is so key, because you can't give what you do not have. If you don't have self-kindness and love and care, compassion for yourself, you don't have it to give to others.
Right.
And you're also modeling it for your child too. Let's say if you are yourself reacting, right? Telling your child, oh, right now, mom's really angry and I just need to breathe. I'm going to take a moment and do some deep breathing outside. So they see it's okay. We all have feelings. We're not trying to get rid of feelings. They're important guideposts for us. But
Exactly.
we want to take the self-care for ourselves when we go into those states.
So that's a great example, as simple as it is, because you're modeling the self-care, you're modeling the exercise of doing the deep breath, the physical exercise of it, but you're also modeling verbalizing that you need a minute.
Exactly.
You're modeling acknowledging your feelings. So even though it sounds simple, there's a lot going on in that little example.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I had a question about when you were doing the chart. With the fight side, the red side, and the flight side, I wonder do you think that it's maybe boys would lean more toward the physical reaction and girls more toward the retreat? Do you think across the board that's a safe generality to make, or not so much anymore?
I would say that they have a tendency towards that, but I wouldn't say it's girls versus boys at all. And even ourselves, right? Sometimes we ourselves will change from one to the other as well. So it's not, you might have a tendency towards one more naturally, but I would say even individually, we kind of move from this to this sometimes as well.
You're right. I see that. I've definitely my whole life, I've been the retreat. Like, I hate confrontation. I want everyone to be happy.
Yeah.
But the older I've gotten too, I've also gotten better at, being verbalizing and being assertive, not aggressive, but assertive, being able to say what you need to say in a nice, respectful way. But they're all learned skills, but they can be learned.
Exactly. Exactly. But that's beautiful, honoring your own needs and your boundaries. So I'm not saying that we let our children totally misbehave or like things like that. No, we have compassion and kindness, and we correct, or we follow up, and we inquire from an unconditionally loving place, and also with respect to our own boundaries as well. I think that's important too. We always need to be in touch with what's right for us and ourselves too, right?
Right. Yeah. That's
and teaching that for our children too, to be able to value and feel their own feeling, that their own internal guidance as well.
Yeah, it's a gift for your children to have a parent who's versed in this and practices and demonstrates this for them. So I think that's great. I had a great vision when you were talking about the schools. Wouldn't it be wonderful if schools had this understanding and just had a program in place? I remember seeing online somewhere quite a while back about a school that did I think it was just a 10-minute meditation with the kids once a day.
Yep.
It completely changed the whole classroom.
Exactly. Yeah, it really can. That understanding and again, just how teachers respond when the kids do act out. Often they're kind of really just seen as the problematic children, let's say. But what's so interesting is with children, right? It's like, I am what you think I am. That's how they, do you know what I mean? So whatever you're telling them, that you're naughty, you're, these types of things, that's who they're going to identify as. And then it's going to create that for you down the track,
The labeling and the self-fulfilling prophecy and the expectation factor.
Yeah,
exactly. Isn't that something, right? And we don't realize, as teachers, as parents, we don't realize how much influence we do have. And I love that you're bringing this awareness. It's really beautiful. I want to take a little bit of an aside. Again, I'm looking at this chart, and something you said, I didn't want to interrupt you, but something you said made me think of when we were looking at the freeze section, and it even says the word shutdown, but we were looking at freeze, the depression, trapped, hopelessness, shutdown. In my mind, I'm thinking of the shutdown during the pandemic and the whole global effects of chronic long-term stress.
Exactly.
So I'm kind of maybe blindsiding you with an unexpected question, going off topic a little bit, but is there anything that you can say to people? Because this is actually one of the reasons, one of the important reasons that I'm curating all of these great speakers is I feel like a lot of people are still feeling stuck and aren't quite able yet to find their way back to pre-pandemic normal, because it was really bad for a really long time for a lot of people on a lot of levels.
Yeah,
you know
I agree. Yeah. And we're seeing the effects of that, I think, today.
yeah,
We are with the mental health issues and more chronic
absolutely.
illnesses. Personally, I think, the chronic stress or the stress has been building over our modern society for
Mm,
quite some time now, the pressures on parent society and the way our families are more isolated rather than living in a community, all of those things, right?
mhm.
So the stress has been building, but yes, certainly COVID is like a peak where it's like,
Yeah,
it was really like a fearful state that we were all kind of put into. And
right.
you think about even that social emotional development, the development for a child to be able to see people's faces and
Hmm.
co-regulate through the voice, the facial expressions, all of those things, and how that may have impacted them, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I think COVID has put us, and it's so important to start. It's one of, like, I feel like a lot of people are actually kind of in more of that chronic stress
Yeah,
state
yeah,
without even realizing it, because we've almost gotten
exactly.
used to it. So you can start to feel within your body whether you are tense, right? Checking in with
Mhm.
your body throughout the day. Just, am I holding tenseness and tightness? What are my thoughts? What are my feelings? Because they'll be aligned to your state, right?
Mhm.
But I really feel like a lot of people may not be realizing their stressed kind of state right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is an awful lot of chronic stress. What about chronic stress? And thank you, for contributing to this, because this is why we're doing what we're doing, is to help people, come out of that chronic stress and that feeling stuck and
Yep.
hopeless. And
Yep.
like life, they just people. I know. I mean, I relate. Like life just got broken somehow, and
Yep.
it's
Yep.
hard when you're in that place. It's hard to see the way out.
Yep.
But simple practices can make a great difference.
Yeah.
So thank you for going off topic a little bit and addressing the COVID, because it is huge for a lot of people. Um, what about chronic stress in kids? How does chronic stress affect children?
So yeah, it really does affect their brain development, like, and healthy relationships. It affects their ability to learn. You have more increased chances of learning problems, of emotional emotional regulation difficulties, decreased ability to handle stress. Behavioral problems will increase, and then you have, predisposition. You're more likely to have mental challenges, whether it's anxiety, depression, physical problems as well. So in these states, our immunity is
Wow.
decreased, and so we're more likely to pick up on chronic illnesses and infections and things like that. Um, so yeah, it's very broad and varied, but I think one of the key things really is that social emotional development that can really get halted in these states, and
Mhm.
it's particularly important. And we need to provide provide our children with safe, attuned parent relationships. It's such a key to stress management, or
Right.
stress resilience in children. Just having an attuned parent who is responsive to your needs, who picks up and
Right.
who shows you that unconditional love,
Mhm.
regardless of how you act, allowing for healthy self expression or safe expression of emotions. Allowing
Mhm.
and giving them permission is so important as well for any kind of emotional
Right.
maturity. And then play. I think we underestimate play and the value of play for children. It's really
Yeah.
important for their neocortical development,
Mm.
and for their neocortex development. And so yeah, it's and that play is not without some sort of target to teach this and that, but
Uh-huh.
just natural play,
Right.
interactive,
Right.
imaginative, fun play, genuine between two people, interactive.
Right.
That's so important for healthy development.
Like we used to do back in the day.
Exactly, exactly,
Right? With no
exactly. Yeah,
agenda.
that's right.
And yeah.
Yeah,
So I had a vision too while you were saying that, of you were describing a safe, supportive family unit, but I think also it'd be great, like if you have, cousins, sisters, aunts and uncles, cousins, to get everyone in on that. So, that
exactly.
same environment can be a little bit broader. And then maybe a neighbor or a close friend where, you can get together and have that same environment where they're learning they can be safe, not just with you, but
Exactly.
yeah. And then ultimately, yeah, the schools. So you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, it's true because a lot of
Yeah.
us are isolated, and I experienced it myself. I was with my husband and my two children, and my family's in Australia, right? And so it's really we don't have that community. So, but it makes
Right.
such a difference to have the support in the mother's stress levels and the family stress levels.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
think it should be. I don't think we were designed to have all the responsibility on the father and mother's shoulders. We
I
used
agree.
to share it, and the mother would go when she's stressed, and then some fellow
Right.
tribe member or something would pick up the children, like, and all interact and help out. I feel
Right.
like it takes a village at the end of the day, like they
Exactly.
say. So
Exactly.
having some sort of support and neighbors, community around you, like-minded people, if you've got family, awesome,
Mhm.
is really helpful.
I think maybe that has something to do with the postpartum depression in moms too, because they are feeling isolated and the lack
That's
of
right.
support. I
Yeah,
definitely,
exactly.
when I had
Exactly.
my first son, I was young. I was 21, and I was the first of all my friends to have a baby. And
Yep.
so, like, there was no one in my circle. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I really didn't. And I
yeah.
remember my mom. I was breastfeeding, and I was uncomfortable. I mean, I had no clue. Um, but we made it. But
Yeah, wow.
I remember sharing with my mom, and she said, "Yeah, it's an adjustment." And I remember thinking like, "Ah, like, that is the biggest understatement, ever made."
Definitely. Yeah. You can never, it's almost like people warn you, but you can't understand it until you like, wow, it's a lot.
Right.
It's a lot. It really is. It's a big journey, and a
Yeah.
beautiful one, but
Eh,
it can
yes.
be stressful, and I really feel like networking with other mums or being within the
Right.
community and kind of it helps a lot, definitely.
I love it. I love what you're doing, and I can see that it's gonna make a great difference. And there's just so much I could, all these talks have been so great. I hate having to wind them down. But I wanted to ask you if you have, which you've already mentioned a couple, but if you have like just a simple practice that people could do at home that'll help give them, just a little bit more peace and less stress or more awareness, just
Yeah.
something that you could leave people with that's easy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of nervous system regulating activities, even just for children, let's say, things like grounding, getting out in the dirt, stretching yoga, mindfulness techniques, going within, there's so many, sorry, that I could share here.
Yeah, that's good.
For adults, I would like to say, when a simple way to allow these kind of tensions or emotions to pass is to go within the body, right? And
Mhm.
so when you feel tense, or when you feel a trigger, what you can do, it's just an energy. Emotion is energy in motion, right? So rather than going to the thoughts and kind of self repeating it, feedback loop going over and over, and all this response will keep going into your body, what you can do is just go into the body and feel your inner sensations in the
Mm,
body. Feel it, you can name whatever emotion it is, but feel any sensation. Scan your body, feel what it feels like in your body. And what happens is in 90 seconds to 2 minutes, that emotion, that energy in your body will
mm.
pass and
Oh,
it's
wow.
gone. Emotions come and they go, right?
Mm,
They're designed to be that way. They'll flow. If we allow it, what happens is we often get stuck in our thoughts, which then continues that emotion, exacerbates it, and it's just a feedback loop of thoughts, feelings over and over and over. So if
mm,
we as parents, when we notice those triggers, know that perhaps it's not just, if it's an overreaction, it's something else that's driving it. It's
uh-huh.
a memory, it's a trauma, or it's maybe from childhood, or maybe it's a fear that you have. But go into your body and realize that it's just an emotion and energy, and you can kind of heal yourself by allowing that
Mm.
emotion to pass, letting it go, letting it be. And yeah, it's time for us to kind of unwind these trapped emotions in our bodies,
Yes.
almost,
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much for that. And then I know that you have a gift for the participants, and so I'm going to put the title up and I'll let you explain a little bit. I love the title, so explain
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so affirmations for children. Now, so what's so fascinating is from 0 to 7 years old in particular, everything that we hear goes straight into our subconscious mind. There's no question about it. It's like a tape recorder. We literally just take it all on without question, right? And they form a lot of our core beliefs too. And obviously that continues on as we go on, but a lot of our core beliefs is formed at that time. So what I wanted to provide is just affirmations that you can either have the child repeat or just have it playing in the background somewhere with some positive statements like, I am worthy, I'm deserving of love. So, you know, you don't have to even be that conscious of it, but just so it kind of starts getting in there, you know?
Right. That's beautiful. Give them a good foundation from the beginning.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, I think parents deserve to hear it too. Maybe we didn't hear that as children. And as I was saying to you before, right, when we say the words to our children, or perhaps the words that we didn't hear for ourselves as children that we wanted to hear, we're also healing ourselves too by, you know, you are worthy, you are loved, you are beautiful, you are smart, all these things. You're kind of healing yourself and telling yourself. The mind doesn't know whether you're saying it to them or that. It's just taking it in regardless. So you're really healing your child and yourself, you know?
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. That's a very generous gift. And I know a lot of parents are going to take you up on that. I'm going to bring you side by side and tell you, this has been so enlightening. And I like I said, I wish we could talk forever. So you're full of great passion and energy. And I love the work that you're doing. And I just thank you so much for being part of the summit and sharing with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Janine. I'm grateful to be here, and I thank you for sharing messages like this all over. So thank you.
I always I get so inspired, and I have these visions, you know, when I talk to you guys, and I'm like, oh, we just have to get the word out. We have to get out there and spread the word. And schools are a great place. Schools definitely need some help right now, don't they?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and I forgot to mention, just so people know, so to access the gift, the affirmations for children, there will be a link below the video when the video airs. So,
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Gabi.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.